This year's been very different, obviously, because the judges have been in lockdown, as has everyone else. And in a way, there's been a kind of communion as a result of it, because they're having meetings on Zoom, which means that the judge who lives in Wyoming and the judge who lives in Pennsylvania can speak to the judges who live here in London very easily. I really admire the judges this year in particular. I think they've done it with a sort of noble cause in mind, really, given everything else going on, given the fear.
It's been hard doing a long list, letting go books that each of us as judges admired for different reasons. And I said, there's always an X quality. We're judging two accomplished books up against each other. Why does this one get through rather than that one? That's hard to tell. It's going to be even harder when we get to the short list, because every book on the long list has made an impression on us. And so how we distill that into a short list of 6, well, we'll have to see.
Well, the judges have read 166 books altogether, so we've done the breadth. These are our suggestions, the long list, 13 books. And in fact, this is the most exciting stage, because we're just offering you these 13 books and saying, look, we really, really would like you to read them. And yeah, we'll have the short list and we'll have the winner. But for me, this is the stage in which we can give you a breadth of completely different kinds of books, all ages, backgrounds, nationalities, but all united by the fact that they're trying to create a vision and transfer it somehow through fictional form. Because although we haven't been able to see people in real life, I've had a new companion every evening by reading a new book. It's like being introduced to a new friend. And like a lot of introductions, some of them don't work out. Some of them you just can't get the other person at all. But there have been definitely lots of cases, and particularly the 13 books that we've chosen. Well, it's been really fantastic, and I've been so privileged to be in the company of these great writers.
Lockdown is difficult, and it has been for all of us in one way or another. But the saving grace for me as a judge of the Booker Prize is that I have had to dive into the imaginations of some of the greatest writing in the English language in fiction. We were looking for quality writing that is down to the sentence. And we were looking for writers to, if they write in a genre, to push the genre, to not just stay in a pattern which we all know. We wanted to be surprised, we wanted to be inspired, we wanted to be challenged. It can only happen in the reading, and it is the unexplainable.
We were looking for, obviously, the best novel of the year, but the problem was we had 150 submissions and probably 100 of them were worthy of consideration on that basis. And so, yeah, there was a lot of technical analysis, there was a lot of talk about what was the story, what was the technique, and all of that kind of thing, and that reduced it to maybe 30 books. But then it's just that mysterious thing. We're readers more than anything else, and that mysterious thing, that X factor, that makes one book better than another book. You really can't say why, all you can do is feel it.
I was particularly interested by how many books had to do with difficult female relationships, difficult relationships between mothers and daughters, or parents and children in general. I felt there were a lot of really good books that were about moments of cultural change and how moments of cultural change put pressure on individuals, and very often that was figured through difficult parent-child relationships. The long list this year is very diverse in both the different places that the novels are set, the different ways that storytelling happens, the different ways that what the novel is interpreted, and the different kinds of character relationships. I think diversity is really important in looking at the list and also looking at the ways that the literary storytelling happens. I also think there's a deep humanity and a focus on family and intimate relationships that's there in many of these books, and also a focus on difficult pasts and how to escape or not escape from difficult pasts, a focus on abuse and dealing with conflict. These are compelling stories which are going to teach you about different people's lives. They're also going to teach you about what are the resources of the English sentence or the Anglophone novel.
I think all 13 are about people under extreme pressure in some way or another, which was interesting to us. Is that an artifact of this year? We don't know. But really what stood out is how good they were. The major disappointment for me occurred right at this moment where you've got to go down to 13 for the long list, which meant saying goodbye to possibly a dozen or even 24 really fabulous novels. And that was sad, but now I got over that and I'm looking forward to the next 2 stages. We got 13 books here of unbelievable quality, and boiling them down to a shortlist and a winner is going to be a fascinating process amongst the 5 of us.
When we came to discuss the books, people discovered qualities in them that maybe you hadn't spotted. So somebody would find something sentimental, but maybe you would find it moving. So you'd have a little discussion about what that meant and how it was. What I'm really looking for in a book is a kind of driven quality. A reason that this book absolutely had to be written and something that had to be communicated. They're all very different in many ways. I mean, they're from a variety of backgrounds, and most importantly, they have a variety of sensibilities and approaches to things. There's an interesting attitude towards the past. A lot of these could be classified as historical novels, even ones that are set in the 1980s are kind of historical. What they do is they have a quality of attention, and I think that's the most important thing. Attention to the characters, attention to the surroundings the characters are in. And when a writer manages to give that attention and that love, really, and that generosity to their characters, then the reader is going to be completely drawn in.
What stood out about this particular group of books was the fact that there were so many fresh voices, new takes on storytelling. And I'm not only talking about debut writers, but just throughout the writers we picked for the long list. There were so many good qualities that made up not necessarily a traditional novel, but sometimes they were traditional, sometimes they were trying to do different things, and altogether it was just such a rewarding thing to discover new ways of telling stories. Readers who read any or all of these books, I hope people will want to read them all, because there are so many different voices and such rewards to hearing the stories. And they're not all necessarily love stories or easy stories, but they're all stories that are worth reading, that will enrich you, that will really give you a different point of view about the world we're actually living in now.
What stands out in this long list is that I think it's around 70% women, that there is an author who is the first diaspora from one country in the world to have reached the Booker long list. That's a first. Quality writing, the sharpness of sentence that transmitted its intention. We wanted genres to be pushed. That's why you should pick up these books. Find out about the world that you're living and be inspired by it. Look into the future. Books are time machines. They can send you back into the past, they can send you forward into the future, and you can play around in there. They're the perfect virtual reality machine. We judges were very excited to find ourselves with a long list. Now we are even more excited to get into this for the shortlist.
I think the fact that we had this period of lockdown, which has made people isolated, given people more time with themselves, with each other in their small circles, it's been a perfect time for people to read and go outside their own experiences, to read about other people's lives. to see how the world appears from a different perspective. And I think that's a positive thing about reading in this current climate. And it's something that has really, in my own life, been very helpful, because I've had tragedies in this lockdown, as many other people have. And it's been good to be able to escape through reading and to see things from different perspectives other than that of my own life and my own personal crises and tragedies. So it's a way of enriching our lives, and it's a way of learning, because there are so many things one can learn from the stories that are really grouped as fiction, but are real life or history or insightful in some other way, so we can always learn from a novel.
I think fiction does become especially important when people need other places to go. You know, they need other places to go to in their minds. And what's really interesting about this long list in particular is that the stories come from so many different places. One thing that was surprising was that, of course, the judges didn't have this in mind when they were choosing the books individually. But when they came to sit back and look at the list, when all 13 had been drawn up, one of them asked, just out of interest, how many of these are debut novels? And so we counted them, and there were 7. So 7 out of 13, that's just over half. I don't think that's ever happened before. And so it means that a lot of people will be surprised. Perhaps people will need more information about each of these novels in order to get their bearings within the list. But I also think it's a testament to the powerful and new stories that are coming from all over the world. There are 9 women out of 13. Half of them are people of colour. And I do want to stress that the judges didn't have that in mind. You know, judging the Booker Prize is not a matter of identity politics, either on the part of the judges or in favour of particular authors. In fact, the judges really know that they are awarding the prize to a book and not to an author. The author sort of receives the prize on behalf of the book. But I think maybe something is shifting in the world of literature, and in reading these books we'll be able to see what that is.